Okay, so if you're a creator using AI, you're kind of walking a legal tightrope, right? You've made something amazing, but do you actually own it? The answer really boils down to one key idea: meaningful human authorship. And in this explainer, we're going to break down the official checklist to make sure your work is protected. So imagine this. You've spent hours prompting, curating, arranging everything just so. You've created something totally new. But does all that effort legally make you the author? That is the critical question. Because as we're about to see, the law is drawing a very, very specific line between being a creator and just being an operator. This quote right here from the Copyright Alliance, this is the foundation for everything we're about to talk about. Their position is crystal clear. If a machine does all the creative heavy lifting, that work belongs to everyone. It's public domain. So the entire legal battle really hinges on one thing: proving your human authorship. Now, this isn't some new rule they cooked up for the AI age. This is a cornerstone of copyright law. The whole system is designed to incentivize human creativity. A machine, doesn't really need incentives. For a work to be protected, a human has to be in the driver's seat. To see how this all works in practice, there is no better example than the landmark case of a graphic novel called Zarya of the Dawn. This case really pushed the limits of that human authorship rule and gave us the first real roadmap for this stuff. Just look at this timeline. It shows you how incredibly fast this landscape is changing. In September 2022, a groundbreaking registration was granted. But by February, the Copyright Office was already hitting the brakes. They didn't kill the copyright entirely, but they carved it up in a way that set the precedent for the official rules we all have to follow today. So, what did the author get to keep the copyright for? Well, all the parts that were undeniably her creative work. She wrote the story. She chose which AI-generated images to use from who knows how many options, and most importantly, she arranged the text and the images to tell her story. That whole compilation, that act of curation, that was human authorship. Now here's the flip side. What wasn't protected? The individual images themselves. The Copyright Office ruled that because the AI generated them, they lacked a human author. And here's a key detail. Even the little edits the author made to the images were dismissed as too minor to count as new creative work. This quote really gets to the heart of their logic. The Copyright Office sees a text prompt not as a tool, but more like a command. You're giving instructions, sure, but the AI is making the actual expressive choices. You can guide it, but you can't predict the output with the same kind of control you'd have over, say, a paintbrush or a camera. So this brings us to the central test the Copyright Office is now using, and they've given us a fantastic analogy to help us understand it. When you use AI, are you acting as the artist holding the tool, or are you just a client giving instructions to a hired artist? This slide really breaks down the two roles you can play. On the left, you're the artist. You're using a tool like a camera where you control the composition, the lighting, every creative detail. But on the right, you're the client. You give a general command like, hey, paint a futuristic city, and the AI acts as the artist, making all the key creative decisions. The Copyright Office will only protect the work of the artist, not the client. So what happens when you're seen as the client, not the artist? Well, the sorriest case is the perfect cautionary tale. It shows exactly what the Copyright Office considers a lack of creative control. In this case, an artist provided two images, their own photograph and the famous painting, The Starry Night. Then they told an AI to merge them. Even though the artist chose the inputs, the Copyright Office said no. And why? Because the AI made the crucial creative decision of how to blend them. The artist couldn't predict or control that final expressive combination, so it wasn't their authorship. Okay, so we've seen the theory, we've seen the cautionary tales. Now let's turn all of this into action. Here is a practical 3-step checklist to help you make sure your work has that meaningful human input the law demands. First up, selection and arrangement. Just like with Zarya of the Dawn, your creativity can shine in the choices you make. By carefully selecting specific assets and arranging them into a new composition, think of a collage or a curated anthology, the final compilation itself becomes your copyrightable work. Second, transformative editing. If you're going to edit an asset, the change has to be substantial. We are not talking about a one-click filter or a simple crop. Your edits have to add a new, meaningful layer of your own artistic vision to the original piece. This slide shows the difference perfectly. The mechanical process on the left, like an automatic filter, that's not your authorship. But the creative act on the right, like a detailed manual colorization where you're making specific artistic choices every step of the way, that absolutely is. That's where you're adding your own copyrightable expression. And third, add your own original content. This is the most direct method. Write your own text, add your own illustrations. By weaving 100% human-made content in with AI assets, you're creating a new, copyrightable compilation where your authorship is totally undeniable. So, you've done the work, you've poured your human creativity into the project. But how do you prove it? This final step is absolutely critical. You have to document your process. Think of yourself as a detective building a case for your own creativity. You need to keep everything. Save your prompts to show your thought process. Screenshot your editing software with all the layers visible. Write down why you made certain artistic choices. This paper trail is your non-negotiable evidence. And that's the bottom line. Meticulous documentation is what proves you weren't just a client giving vague instructions, but the artist who was in control of the creative process from start to finish. It really is the key to protecting your work. This leaves us with a pretty big question for the future. As these AI tools get more and more sophisticated, more intuitive, the very nature of creativity is changing. So where do we draw that line? How are we going to distinguish the artist's vision from the tool's execution? It's something we're all going to be figuring out together.